start is to talk just briefly about that partnership. AVST provides software solutions in the unified communication space, and we do so solely through a distributor channel. We don't sell anything direct because we believe that close touch to the customer is vital in making unified communication effective inside your enterprise. So we have a number of partners, and you're very lucky if Arrow is your partner. Not only are they one of our largest partners, they also have a very long history with us, which means when you're dealing with them, you'll immediately be able to tell they know our product, they know the market, they probably already know your enterprise, and it makes some of these more complex sales where we're talking about integrating within your enterprise much easier when you have a vendor that has that level of expertise. I'm showing on screen are just some of the customers, the joint customers where Arrow has gone out, and their customers are using our products and supported by them. We have, trying to think, I think 10 million users was the last number that our marketing department gave us to use in terms of people on our systems, and they all tend to look very much like this picture, larger enterprises. We started out early days as a smaller voicemail product and moved upstream. As things got more complex, our product was really ideal. So each one of these customers, if we were to put you in touch with them, would tell a slightly different story in terms of why they bought our product. And we're not going to cover a lot of that kind of information in this webinar because we're focusing on something very specific. But if you get with Arrow, you'll find there are lots of other webinars on all the different parts of our solution set. In terms of who we are and why we would be presenting this, a lot of people haven't heard of us, but it's not because we haven't been out here. We've been selling actively this product since 1985, and it kind of makes it the most robust and the most product with the most longevity in the market today. And we have a reputation for an extremely stable product and for a very high level of connectivity to whatever the enterprise has to offer. So we have a pretty good idea what you go through in your enterprise in this particular space, and we feel pretty comfortable talking about how our products, our solutions, go into this space and what they'll do for you. We started out a long time ago as a simple voicemail company, and voicemail was very easy to do compared to what everybody faces today with unified communications. It was very much a silo app connected to the phone system and the power in the wall and pretty much nothing else. But as communications has grown, as technology has gotten better, communications has not really gotten more simple. It's gotten much more flexible. And what that means is we can deliver a lot more in the way of communications to your users, but the focus is a little broader than it used to be. We used to worry about answering a forwarded phone call and taking a message, and we still do that today. So, for individuals, we still have, the typical kind of call answering applications, find me, follow me applications, very much, focused on each individual user, and they're different, and we can compensate for that. On the other end of the spectrum, the business itself needs things like a front-end automated attendant, a speech rec automated attendant, perhaps custom business process IVR solutions, and we do that as well. And then just in the last few years, we've found out that suddenly, besides individuals and the overall corporate, there's a lot of team activity where communications need to be handled a little different. A lot more collaboration, teams spread across different geographic sites. So those are sort of our three focuses in terms of, as we look at a particular type of solution, we have to make sure it's flexible to address all three of those needs. And then if that doesn't complicate it enough, we also have to certainly be looking at what's going on in the enterprise today. So a good part of our business is replacing mission-critical voice applications. That's really one of the prime subjects today for the webinar. And we're an ideal candidate for this because our product has been on the market for almost 30 years, and we have a lot of experience in those older legacy critical applications, and all those are still in our product. And because we're not owned by a PBX vendor or a router company, our market is the world. Whatever your individual infrastructure is, we work in that infrastructure, and we'll work with your legacy systems today if that's what you have. We'll also work as you go forward into a new architecture. So we focus on making sure we can cover that legacy part of the market. But at the same time, there's a lot going on in the communications market that takes a good deal of our focus. And those are things like the migration for certain applications to the cloud, IP connection for almost everything, Lync as a major player showing up in the telephone market. All of that requires a certain amount of our focus as well. And then the last bit, the little bit we have left, we spend looking at the trends in the market. So we started as a voicemail company, but it didn't take us long to realize we were really ideal for a multi-application platform, and that started first with a fax server on the platform, and then adding unified messaging to the system, and then a very intelligent personal assistant with context-based routing, and just everything that's going on out in the market, kind of the leading-edge solutions. We have to make sure we keep a key focus on that as well. And we are recognized in the industry. Gartner spells us out as the prime product for unified messaging. We've won awards for our personal assistant. So it isn't just legacy, it's everything from legacy through the very latest and greatest. So there's lots of reasons why people would talk to us, lots of things they might be looking for. What we're going to focus on today, however, is the fact that many people have legacy call processing systems in place that are going out of support. So there's a couple that we've just listed up here. This is by far not an exhaustive list. There's lots of these systems that are going out of support, and for lots of different reasons. In this particular case, we're looking at some of the Avaya ones. If you look at the Octel and the Aria series, many of those systems are older than 20 years old out there, and many of them hadn't had a soft grade in over 10 years, software upgrade. They have just come to that point in their career where pretty soon they cease to work. There's no choice. There's some drop dead dates on these that are very, very hard and fast. And that puts people in a position where they have to replace them. So what we're going to talk about today is just that process, replacing those kind of systems. At the same time, just some of the other systems are aging out for other reasons. If you look at CallPilot and Modular messaging, they are coming to the end of their life, and some of that focuses on the fact that they run on an older version of Windows. So if you have a system in your enterprise that's running on Windows Server 2003, you probably have an IT staff that's telling you that has to cease at a particular date or as early as possible. And this is mostly because Microsoft is ceasing support on this. Doesn't mean it stops working on July 14th, but it does mean there'll be no more patches and no more support, and that tends to make people a little nervous about having that within their network. There is so much interconnectivity today on the network where everything can reach out and touch everything else that people get very, very nervous. So a lot of people are now being forced into a decision with a fairly firm date saying, I need to replace those older systems. One of the great things about looking at us as a replacement is we are recognized for our interoperability everywhere, whether it's connecting to groupware, connecting to a phone system, connecting to databases. It just has to do with our architecture on our system. We started with an open application a long, long time ago, and that's given us kind of a really chance to get out in the market today. There's sort of a history that's gone on larger enterprises where a lot of disparate systems, sometime a few years ago, they decided to centralize and consolidate in the data side. A lot of times that started with their email systems and kind of carried through their other data systems, and they found when they consolidated it worked very well. Now they're looking to do that same type of thing out in the telephony world, but in many cases they don't really want to get rid of their telephony infrastructure. There's a huge investment in that, and in many cases it still works perfectly well. So while some people will say in order to get a new system you have to replace your telephony infrastructure, that fabric has years left in it in many cases. We are the independent provider. We don't really care what PBX you have out there today. Every single feature we have on our platform will work on the very newest IP-based system as well as the very oldest TDM-based system. We've designed our product to be independent of the architecture to which it connects. And there's just a safety factor there, a comfort factor, knowing that if you have to make a fairly quick decision to replace a legacy call processing system today, if you choose our product, then going forward you still have a wide open field in terms of what you're going to do with your telephony infrastructure. And that includes a bridge policy where maybe you have an older system today, you're going to move to a new IP system by a different manufacturer. It's a 2 or 3 year strategy. Perhaps you're going to move to Lync over the next few years. You can put our system in and connect it to all of the systems within your enterprise and move users as it makes sense for you as you're changing your infrastructure. So it's just a nice comfort factor to know you can do that. If you look at the basic features you have today. You're replacing a call processing system. One of your important concerns, undoubtedly, is making sure you're not losing any functionality. Now, a lot of people start off with the assumption that if I buy a new product, it has all those wonderful new features in it. Surely it has all of the legacy features that I've been using for years. And it doesn't take long in the market to find out that's just not true. There's many legacy features that you will lose moving to a number of the newer systems. The newer systems have been, they obsolete the old systems, they build new systems, and in most cases they didn't go back and make sure that feature set was in there. That's one of the strengths of our product. Since our product, we didn't have to sunset it. It's worked on an open operating system and industry standard hardware since the day we started. We still have all the legacy features. So when you move from your older system to our system, there won't be any shock in suddenly finding out on Monday morning the things you no longer can do that might be a serious part of your business process. So in the 3 decades we've been doing this, we've really locked down all of those legacy features. At the same time, for those of you moving from a legacy product, we have the best set of alternate telephone user interfaces on the market. And what that means is if you have one of these systems listed here, you can move over to our product and enable that same user interface, let's say from the Octal ARIA, for your users to use going forward with our product. Now, this is not a simple top-level key mapping that a lot of the other vendors offer. This is top to bottom. I could come in as a new user on our system on Monday morning, and I was an ARIA user, and I could get into my mailbox, listen to all my messages, forward them, delete them, create new messages, address them to multiple recipients. Every one of those keystrokes would be the same as it was on Friday. The only area of change is if I'm going in to set up my mailbox options, those keystrokes will be new. And they have to be. We just have so many more features than those old systems. We couldn't mimic their key map for that. But for all the rest of it, it's a very easy process to move from your older system to our system with an absolute minimum disruption in any kind of process for the users. And then, of course, when you move, we are on the most current version of Windows. Call processing is the same story as voicemail. Call processing is funny because a lot of people tell me, yeah, we don't really use call processing anymore. We don't have an automated attendant. We don't do any of that. And then someone in the room usually chimes up, oh, well, except for this department, and they have this. Oh, except for after hours, we still have this. And it turns out there tends to be some of those legacy applications still hiding around in there. And once again, the story is whatever you have, we can duplicate because our product was on the market when those were a serious part of why someone bought a system like this. So every simple feature from a normal dial-by-name directory up to a full speech interface, all of that is supported on the product. As we look at a lot of customers, their challenges are even larger than some of their other people, based on the fact that they have complex architectures with multiple sites. And as they look at replacing those older legacy systems, where the choices for virtualization, redundancy, high availability were minimal or non-existent, they now want, at the same time they pursue these new systems, to look at sort of bringing them into the fold. So centralization of resources, virtualization, survivability, all of that is very important. Our product's really ideal for this. It's fully supported on VMware. Not just you can put it on VMware, but it takes advantage of things like vMotion and fault tolerance and high availability on the VMware platform itself. And it's scalable. As you add the multiple sites together, we actually can scale up to 750 ports. And we have elements that can be centralized or distributed. So you can put one of our call servers out where the phone systems are at all your different sites. It's still a single integrated system, but by having a survivable component on site, the system will survive a network failure. So if the main site network goes down, those survivable components can still answer calls and take messages, run your automated attendant. So it's a very safe protection for your business process at the remote site as well. So we see a lot of interest based on people who have complex architectures and complex IT needs in terms of going just beyond the function of the application. At the same time you move to this platform, even though your goal might be, I need to replace my voicemail, I just want like for like, I don't have time to have a very complex process of evaluating all these other solutions that are involved, so just give me a basic voicemail. Even if that's your approach, keep in mind this platform you purchase now will be more than your voicemail going forward. The drive in unified communications is undeniable. The applications that are out there are going to be unresistible. And pretty soon, you're going to find that that platform you bought just to replace that old legacy voicemail is what you need to host a lot of applications. And mobility is one of the biggest ones out there. So make sure, even though you might not want to deploy it right now, make sure the platform you pick to replace that legacy system has legs. Make sure it's going to last more than just a year or two, and then you find out to get the functions you need now, you have to replace the platform again. So you have to at least do a minimum evaluation of any of the new technologies you think you'll want in the next 5 to 7 years. And I know that makes the process more complex, but I think it's worth the time to do it now rather than be really sorry later when you realize the platform you picked was kind of a lowest common denominator and won't take you forward. One of the things that most people are looking at, even as they replace their legacy voice messaging systems, is unified messaging. That sort of seems to be the one newer application that everybody understands, sees the value of, wants to move forward on. It's not an easy decision on how to do that either. One of the great things about our product is we had the first unified messaging on the market. I think it was 1989 we installed our first one. And we've kind of maintained the lead in that space. As I said earlier, Gartner points us out as the premier supplier of enterprise unified messaging. And one of the things that we do is we take that interoperability that we have for phone system connections, we bring it over here as well. So we don't care what your email system is. You can have Exchange, you can have Office 365, Notes, GroupWise, Gmail, anything you have, and a mix. We have customers that have 2 or 3 different Exchange servers in different forests and domains, and they're in the process of moving to Office 365, and we can support all 4 of those on a single platform. So from a connectivity point of view, we're a very likely player in any discussion that's going to talk about unified messaging. Unified messaging, the feature set, we're not going to go through here. We have whole webinars that, based on just unified messaging, just on speech, just on Lync, all the different topics. But today, just kind of keep in mind that the way we do unified messaging will let you control that environment. You can control what devices work, how they work, where the messages are stored on a per-user basis. And whether you have a desire to have it deployed tightly integrated to perhaps Exchange, so your messages are stored on the Exchange server, or you want it in such a manner that it's highly secure where it can't get out of your system, so you want to view it in a web client and on a mobile client that doesn't let the user get the messages out of the system. Those are all options on our system, and you can pick and choose kind of on a per-user basis. When we talk about unified messaging, surprisingly, the features aren't a very big part of the discussion. The 5 C's tend to be what people want to talk about. They have compliance concerns. They have legal requirements about e-document discovery and retention, and they want to understand with unified messaging, what does that mean? If I put the message in a certain place, how comfortable am I with that? And the same kind of solution for confidentiality comes up. I have maybe I'm a healthcare organization, and I have users where, due to HIPAA concerns, I'm not comfortable putting the voice messages into Exchange, where that content can get out into the world. The configuration, how we connect, what we can connect to, where the messages are stored, is all very, very important. And for larger customers, the capacity and how we affect. We have things like if we store messages in Exchange, we keep buffer copies of the raw media on our server, so the user, when they call in over the phone, we don't actually have to drag that message across your network from your Exchange server, and that minimizes our impact on your Exchange server probably by 30 to 35% compared to the competition. And then, surprisingly enough, on every list, it just happens to start with C, so it works comfortably here, is cost. And we have a very interesting cost structure for unified messaging. We have several types of unified messaging that don't cost anything. Basically, once you put our system in, you can turn those on for all the users. And then we have a per-user license structure where for certain types you can buy just a license for those people that want to do that. We don't actually have a license for users. You buy the number of ports you need on our system, and then you can put as many users on it as you want. Going beyond just unified messaging, the whole unified communications category, which includes unified messaging and speech clients for users and personal assistant or find me, follow me software. And one of the newest ones that's really popular to talk about now is context aware. We have all this wrapped up in a single license called Atom. So for your mobile power users, there's a single license that gives them access to all of these features. And some of them are what you'd expect, you know, the typical unified messaging pieces we talk about. The mobile client does some of the things you'd expect. It also does some very unique things. And then the context-aware piece, this is kind of unique to us, I think, in terms of what it does. And our belief is, as good as we are at taking messages, it's so much better if we can complete that call the first time. So we know that users will not do much in the way of changing their environment to make themselves reachable. They won't re-record greetings daily. They won't change their forwarding to a different device when they move around. But you can have that happen automatically by reading the other information in the enterprise. So when a call comes in for one of our users, we can read their calendar. We can read their link status. We know about their physical location. We know about their schedule. And using all of that, we know which devices we should be sending calls to and what kind of greeting to build. We actually build the greeting on the fly based on what's going on. So the call completion is very high. The user doesn't have to do anything to make this all happen, which means you know you'll get your money's worth. And the user experience is much better because they get valid information. Instead of, hi, this is Neil, I'm not here, leave me a message, they'll get, Neil Butler is in a meeting and will be out of the meeting at 11 a.m. So they'll get much better information for them to make decisions on. So that's sort of the next level you go beyond unified messaging. Atom is very unique in terms of it. You know, we've kind of discovered that users need a little help that goes beyond what they're willing to do themselves. So things like using the calendar and the instant messaging to control their calls, part of that is something people have been asking for years. And the simple part was, could you change my greeting when I'm in a meeting? But we've taken it way beyond that. We can change that greeting in the meeting. We can build one on the fly. You can have choices for what information you send them. We can also change that with instant messaging status. And all of this leads for a caller experience that's much better in terms of the information that they get. The next thing we do that's sort of unique is recognize that the user, an average user during the day, doesn't sit in one place. So if their business hours are 8 to 5, it isn't always the best thing to do to transfer the call to their desk phone. So with our mobile client, users can actually define locations where they'd like to have their calls handled differently if they're in one of those locations. So if I build one called the office, when a call comes in and it says, the call rule says I should first send this call to their desk phone, let me ping that device and see if they're in the office. And if they are, it sends it to the desk phone. If they're not, it goes back to the list and says, what else you got? The second one on the list might be send it to their home because they work from home 3 days a week. Well, let me ping the device and see if they're at home. No, they're not at home either. And the third one on the list might be their mobile phone. So calls automatically go to the correct device first time out, even though they can try multiple devices in a row. The mobile clients, their native clients, they get downloaded from the relative app stores. Very easy to deploy, very intuitive in how to use. And like I say, they place calls, they receive calls, they do all the things you'd expect, message access, etc. And of course, we have entire webinars on this as well. But one of the ones we like to talk about, because this is for people who are mobile in the sense of they're in meeting. They're not at their desk, or they might even be at their desk, but they're in a meeting, and that changes things. Many of you, when you go into meetings, will take a mobile device with you, and you'll triage your incoming email. We all know that, you know, in the course of a day, messages that are so important might come in that I had to leave a meeting, and I need to watch those. We can't do that with phone calls very effectively. We can't answer that phone in the middle of a meeting, say, hold on, everybody, let me see if this is important. But what we've come up with is a way to do that same triage for incoming phone calls silently when you're in a meeting. So if you have our mobile client, and it's programmed appropriately, sitting in a meeting, you'll get a silent pop-up. And you can see here's a screenshot of a pop-up. John Smith could be somebody on my system or someone in my contacts. We recognize the ANI number of that caller, and we'll send a little data packet out to your phone. You get a pop-up that says, look, John Smith's on the phone. What do you want to do? If you hit accept, call will be transferred to you on your mobile phone. You can step out into the hall and take the call. Reject will send them to voicemail. If you hit options, you'll get a whole other screen for things that you can do. And one of these is to actually silently play an acknowledgement to the caller. So if I hit the silent acknowledgement button, another screen comes up and I hit we'll call in 15 minutes. This is all silent, and the caller hears, Neil Butler was unable to take your call and we'll call you back in 15 minutes. So I now have that option to look at that call and decide if it's more or less important than what I'm currently doing. One of the key parts of Atom for mobile users is also the speech interface. Now, in our history, we were founded in 1982. By 1985, we were selling typical call processing applications. In 2003, we merged with another company that had an extremely powerful speech recognition platform, and over the next couple of years, we moved all that functionality in. So we now have a user speech interface that's about 15 years old, I would say, somewhere in that market. So this is not a first-generation speech interface. This is a full, intuitive speech interface. I haven't touched a button on a phone when I'm using my mobile phone to call in years because it's just all there for me. I climb in my car in the morning, I hit my speed dial button, I hear, hello, Neil Butler, what would you like to do? And I say, read my calendar for today, and it goes out and reads my Exchange calendar. When I'm done, I say, get new messages, and it reads my email to me and my voicemail, tells me if I have fax messages. Maybe one of my email messages is from one of my contacts saying, I know you're due to be here at 8, but can you call me? So while I'm listening to that email message, I say, call back. And because that person's in my contact and I also know the phone number from the system, it'll actually place a call to that person. And I can say, yeah, what's the problem? Okay, fine. How about if I reset up an appointment at 2 o'clock today? And he says, fine, and hangs up. I'm still in my system. I say, create a new meeting today at 2 o'clock for 2 hours. So that whole way we work, that triage through email process, works with this mobile interface and makes you extremely productive whenever you're in a hands-free type environment. For those of you that also might be looking at Lync, we're the only other player in the Lync market today besides Exchange that offers a full integration to Lync. So what this means is if you look at deploying Lync and you look at what's in Exchange and you have issues with that, which some users do. Some users, as we've said before, don't want to store their messages in Exchange, their voice messages, for confidentiality and compliance reasons. Some have some front-end call processing that goes way beyond the limited version that Exchange has. So there's a whole list of reasons here. But today, your only choice with Lync Telephony is Exchange unless you buy our product. Our product is the first application that actually sits behind Lync like it sits behind any other PBX. And we're recognized by Microsoft as being the solution to those problems where people won't deploy Lync because of the shortcomings of Exchange. So what will happen in those deals is Microsoft will send their customers or their VARs to us, and we bring one of our dealers, one of which we bring in quite a lot is Arrow because of their expertise in that Lync market. And now we're actually able to deliver the full range of our functionality to Lync users. Now this becomes important because a typical migration to Lync for a large enterprise is not, hey, let's cut that system over the weekend and we'll be up and going on Monday. It's, we're going to put a test bed in, then we're going to move some users. I have a new office going in, we'll start them, right out of the box with Lync, but we don't want to create technology islands. So the CX, the Call Express system, can actually sit there and connect to the old integrations through whatever type technology would be used for the TDM switches and start bringing the Lync on board a little at a time. And then when you're done, you actually end up with just a single Lync deployment where we're sitting behind the functionality that we've talked about. If you're looking at Lync, we have a number of webinars for Lync to talk about the issues you might have deploying Lync and trying to use Exchange as the process, and all of the pieces that we solve. And all of these are really interesting to talk about if you're looking at Lync, because the process for Lync tends to be, oh, this looks interesting, let me talk to Microsoft, and then you come away saying, oh, this is good, it looks like it's going to be less expensive and everything else, and then you bring a data consultant or a VAR in, and then the message starts to sort of go downhill where they say, well, you can't have this and you can't do that, and it's going to cost you this additional, and you have to change your network. And in that process, you will discover things that Lync doesn't do, storage of messages we talked about, no, they won't emulate any of the older TUIs, and there's just a lot of things missing in Lync. So if you're in that Lync area, you should definitely engage Arrow to talk about our solution, because we can make that Lync deployment much less painful, much easier to do, and we can bridge across as you do that slowly, so you don't end up carving out a technology island somewhere where those people are on Lync, but they're cut off from the rest of the company. One of the reasons we get to talk about all these solutions is due to our architecture. We were started by data people, not voice people. We have a true three-tier application kind of architecture like you find in most data solutions, with a core engine, interoperability pieces connecting to it, and application modules on top of it. One of the unique things about our product is you can deploy every single feature we have on a single physical server. We're not one of those bolt-on companies where our PowerPoint slide looks good because it says here's all the things we have, and then when we start talking about architecture, you get to see the list of here's all the additional servers you need to buy and maintain. No. For us, it's a licensing question. What do you want? We turn it on the license and you have it. That's not to say we won't be deployed on multiple servers for scalability, high availability, full geo-redundancy. All of that is possible as well. But the simple putting in of the applications is just much easier with our product, which translates to easier to put in, easier to maintain, less expensive down the road, easier for your users to use those features because they're all part of the same product. I usually wrap up just by saying thank you for coming to these. You know, it's hard to carve time out of your day to do that, and for me, this is what is on my calendar right now. It's easy for me to do this. And let us know, talk with Arrow or talk with us directly. Let us know if there's other solutions or applications you'd like to see webinars are. If you think we don't go deep enough, we go too deep, let us know, because we have a continuing program of webinars, and we like to be able to make sure that we're doing exactly what benefits the users.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll give you some time back in your day, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your sales rep, and once again, we'll be sending out the slide deck and recording of this webinar shortly. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.